Dear Earthmates, we are visiting uh, a world musician, Colin O'Donohoe. We are both in the States these months, and uh, we met in Turkey thanks to our mutual friend, Dr. Murat Kemaloğlu. And Colin, you fascinated me with your broad musical horizon and your wonderful initiatives. Um, and ideally now you're addressing 8 billion people and in the future 10 billion people. uh, how did your love uh, regarding music begin?
Uh, well, thanks. First, thanks for letting me speak to all your audience, and thanks on my part to Dr. Murat Kemaolu. So thank you for all of that, and also the nice piece that you wrote for me a couple of years back when we were in Antalya. So thank you. As far as me getting involved in music, it started with my father. I grew up in a musical home where he was a war veteran. I'm actually burying him at Arlington National Cemetery next week. And he was my first music teacher and ambassador, I guess. He always his therapy was to invest in hi-fi stereo and records and big speakers, and he had a diverse interest in music from Motown to 60s folk music to Irish music to Hugh Masekela and Mary Makeba and Harry Belafonte and guys like that, as well as some jazz people and lots of classicals. So that's, I think, in my family, music was as important as I'm Irish American, so it was as important as potatoes. It was as important as having a warm wool blanket in the wintertime. So music was one of those things where you have your clothing, your food, your shelter, and your music. And I believe because of him, and then I had an older brother who I grew up in the 80s where MTV was brand new in the United States. So MTV celebrated the band and the hair band and the glamour of a couple of guys on stage just rocking out on guitars or in hip hop. And I found that so appealing, even at age 7 and 8 years old. I always wanted a pair of drumsticks. I don't know why I gravitated towards the drum, but I did. That's something I still don't really know why. Drums was my thing, but it was always my thing. I was committed in school when they finally let kids play. I was determined to be a drummer, and so that's how it began.
Uh, a drummer is the most active performer maybe in music. I mean, you use most of your body. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, I believe so. There could certainly be a contentious argument there, but I believe so. I believe in learning drum set, especially jazz drumming, which is an American style, very American style form of music, your left leg, right arm, and left arm all have to be able to operate on their own. You kind of need four mini brains in each limb. And then you have to find a balance within that, like a control center, where you make sure all the limbs are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But in jazz music, you spend a lot of time on dexterity and on just being able to give, we call it limb independence. And you work on limb independence so that whatever your right foot wants to do, it will not affect one of your other limbs. And you also have to have a strong center of gravity because as we are flailing around and moving across, we have to be centered. If we have a strong center, then we can do all that crazy stuff. So it actually takes quite a lot of discipline to stay focused in one spot. And the other thing that the drummer's job is to do is to really be a facilitator of the music. We are the one that gives the energy and the foundation to the singer, the guitar player, the bass player, and the drummer work when it's done well. The bass and the drummer, they establish the foundation and the root and the stability for the guitar player to play his wonderful or her wonderful lines, or the keyboardist to come out and do something, or a saxophone, or the singer to feel. A singer needs to feel very secure so that they can then project the message and their lyrics and sing from their whole being. And when the drummer's doing their job correctly, you make everyone else's job easier. So, one thing I was told early in my career is if you want a great compliment as a drummer, you don't want after this show someone to just say, "Wow, you were amazing. You are a great drummer." What's a very good compliment is the band sounded wonderful. The band was just, I couldn't get enough of hearing you guys. I know there's that Turkish expression like, I can eat and never get full of you. I forget the exact words. Can you tell me it? We're talking to Earth people here. What's that expression?
Um, Ne kadar yesem doyamam.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter how much I eat, I cannot feel full.
Full. Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and by the way,
That's what you want.
yes, and your Turkish is very good.
I
Really.
forgot the phrase. I knew it existed. And I understand it once you said it to me. Once you said it to me, I understood, but I couldn't say it. Yeah.
I honestly did not know this function of the drummer. So a drummer is also the orchestra conductor in a way.
In
He's
a way,
the
yeah.
locomotive.
Yes, like whether it's Indian classical music, whether it's in Turkish music, wherever you are, the drummer has to know the form of the song just as well as the balama or the sitar or the electric guitar or the singer. The drummer has to know. The drummer has to know what key you're playing in too, because your drums will be tuned to support the music. So the drummer is very much a supporting role, not the star. No matter how much we want to be the star, and yes, sometimes we get a chance to play a solo and play something crazy. But even when a drummer is doing a fill, say they're playing like doons, babats, to doon, doon, and then they play that little line is actually to tell the rest of the band there's a new section coming. We have to take a change here. So it's actually a signal that if the guitar player, not that they would, but let's say they were daydreaming for a second, they lost their attention span for just a second, the drummer is able to bring us back together and say, no, now we are going to the chorus, or now the chorus is over, or now we need to bring it down, because drummers can actually also bring the volume down. We don't always bring the volume up. And we can choose different cymbals. We can choose different drums that as soon as the other musicians hear this, they respond to that, because music is a language. So when I'm saying something out, another good musician that is fluent in music will hear what I said, understand it, agree with it, hopefully, and then follow suit. So the drummer is kind of that air traffic controller. The bass player is the one that is responsible for time and for the harmony and to make sure the chord progression goes by correctly. The bass player, their job is incredibly hard and difficult and important. And the bass player is normally the one that always everyone forgets about. And really, their job, without a great bass player, a drummer has such a hard job out on stage. So as a drummer, you always want to play with a good bass player.
sorry, most interesting. And one of the reasons I love jazz, though I know little about it, but what I love most is that each it is as anarchic as possible. Uh, there is this individual, a group of individuals in harmony, and this is to me, jazz is my ideal type of social relations or society. You know, it's it is anarchic in harmony with a lot of individuality yet togetherness. A very interesting, difficult genre.
You know,
Am I
I
wrong?
yeah, I like hearing that reaction from you. It means something different to everyone that hears it, and I believe it's just truly American style. There are rules. We do have rules, even in the music that you think sounds like anarchy or chaos. There's actually most of the time a pretty good set of rules, just like there is in a maqam. If I was listening as an American to a maqam, I would say the same thing to you that when I hear like Nefes Artash, it sounds like anarchy. I don't understand the form, but there's a very serious form to that. Same thing with Indian classical music. I don't understand. They're just doing this and this, but there's a form. But the thing that makes it American is while there's a form, there's so much room for individuality.
Yes.
And the principle, one of the things I love about the United States is we have a set of rules, but we also have the freedom to go out and exercise those rules the way we believe is best for us and our family. So we can do this, we can do that, we can choose to go to this school, we can choose to live in that city, we can choose this profession, this group of friends, whatever, and we have freedoms while working under a framework. And jazz does have a framework, but it's a loose one that gives a stage to everyone that wants to play jazz. You can really make your mark, and you can really. There's a reason why some people love Keith Jarrett and other people love McCoy Tyner, or they love John Coltrane, or they love Charlie Parker, or someone else, Miles Davis, or Lee Morgan, or someone else. Everyone has a different Bill Evans. They have a different person they like, Pat Metheny. And they like it for a certain reason, even though we are all still operating under the guise of our forefathers, our people that laid out these structures back in the early 1900s when it was coming out of blues, and then blues mixed with a little bit of American pop at the time, and we got a little bit of a chord change, and mostly it's in the African community where they didn't have access to some of the things that the white community had, and also their story wasn't the same. So why would an African American be telling the story of a white person? They didn't live that white person's life. They lived their life, and they're going to tell their story. And so because they started to get a little more freedom, and I mean a little more, in the early 1900s, they were able to play for themselves, small pockets of a community. Maybe they were playing in halls of 40 people or 50 people, but it resonated with those 50 people. And then it spread so organically. And it took another 30, 40, well, 30 years until it started making it more mainstream. Um, so I just really, I'm very proud of the art form, and I love that the world has taken it on and incorporated it in their own ways. So you can hear jazz in Japan, you can hear jazz in Turkey, you can hear jazz in South America, and it doesn't sound American, but that's okay. America doesn't want a monopoly on the art form. They're just the inventor of it, and everyone can enjoy it and make it their own. Like my one of my favorite guitar players right now is Cenk Erdoğan.
Oh,
Cenk Erdoğan is a guitarist. He lives in Istanbul, and I encourage your listeners to check out some Cenk Erdoğan. Man is great. There's another trombone player. His name is Bulut. I forgot his last name, but I think he's also one of the best jazz trombone players right now in the world, and he's Turkish. You
Mhm.
have some fantastic jazz musicians coming out of Turkey right now. And who would expect that? I mean, as an American, I wouldn't expect that. But when you hear the trombone playing of Balut, and I wish I remember his last name, you hear a lot of the old style jazz, like 1950s, uh, early 1960s. And the technique of his trombone playing, of his ensemble, it sounds like such a refreshing flashback to 60 years ago, but with a modern twist. And he's Turkish. The band is Turkish, so it's got that very unique sound to it. And as an American who grew up in New York and has grew up hearing jazz music, a good jazz musician is a good jazz musician no matter where they're from. There's
Uh,
a great piano player from Azerbaijan who lives in New York City. He's also really rocking it right now. So it's just cool to see these people from these different parts of the world that embrace it. And of course, Turkey is also well known for their bass clarinet. Oh man, when you hear those bass clarinet players out of Turkey, they can just make that instrument scream, and it's so fun to listen to.
yeah. Uh, you expressed much better than you expressed what I wanted to express. When I said anarchic, I didn't mean without any form. I meant as free as possible, uh, yet with a harmony and exactly how you said it. And how about world music? Uh, when did you start um, exploring other societies, cultures, instruments, and you started to bring them together? Various, your, your band, your
Uh,
orchestra.
well, Well, the seeds always start for me, I believe, in my upbringing and my adolescence. And I think again back to my father who's pressing on me now because the funeral is next week. I think I'm thinking a lot more about my parents.
Condolences. I didn't know. I didn't know. My
Thank you. Thank you. So when I was about 12, my father took me to a concert of Hugh Masekela. He's a flugelhorn player from South Africa. It was at my father's graduate school that he had gone to 30 years earlier. It was a very small venue. I think I was like 12. We get there, they were late because of their plane and the weather, because I grew up in upstate New York where weather's horrible. It's hard for planes. Anyway, they came to the show about an hour late, hour and a half late. And the first thing he said, and he was older by then, this was 1991, 92. He said, "Hey guys, thank you for waiting. Um, we have absolutely nothing to do tonight after the show. So we're just going to hang out and jam if that's okay with you." And instead of playing a 2 hour concert, they played like a 4.5 hour concert. We stayed till past 2 in the morning or so. Again, as a 12-year-old, that's like, you know, your dad letting you stay up till 2 is pretty cool. But I sat right next to the drummer. I believe the drummer that they had hired was from Zaire, and I never heard the approach. I never seen African musicians, a couple feet away from me, playing, and to me that was a pivotal moment for me to see that people from another country could not only make music but make music I like. It's one thing to bring something in, but think about food. If you've never had menemen before and it looks like the weirdest thing in the world to you, are you going to eat it? Are you going to like it? You don't know. And then you eat it and you discover, oh, menemen's pretty nice. Oh, I think I want this. I'll order it again, right?
for our audience, non-Turkish or those who don't know, menemen is simple with eggs and you know better. I think
Yeah,
eggs and what?
It can have tomato-based thing. It can have a yogurt kind of thing to it.
Mixed.
Like a macaroni kind of thing,
Huh.
right?
Yes, yes.
I don't know.
It's
I like it.
maybe a little bit spicy too, if you wish. Yes, yes, it's practical and delicious. Yes.
Right. But it could look weird to a person that maybe never saw that cuisine before.
Mm.
If you only saw potatoes, cabbage, and corned beef, and now you're served this meal, it might not even look like food to you.
Mm.
With music, you bring in, and even though a nice person hands it to you and puts it on the table. And it's the same with music. You see these nice people that come, but you don't know if you're going to like it. Um, and I did, and I remember going home that night, being interested. My brother bought me a Babatunji Olatunji CD. He's from Nigeria. I think he's a Yoruba from the Yoruba tribe. Very famous in America back in the 60s, 70s. He's the one that really started African music becoming a bit popular in America. So those little things started it. I was also raised hearing Irish music in my house, probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours a week of Irish music. So I was a little bit pre-wired. I was going to Eastman for theory training, music theory training. I was studying jazz, probably around 17 or so. I had an Egyptian friend who lent me some traditional Egyptian recordings. And that's the first time I heard some of the maqams like Hijaz and uh, some of the more famous modes and scales that are used over in that region. And I really liked it. And I didn't have that on my piano. So that again started me wondering what kind of sounds are out there. I then got into Chinese music, mainly because I like literature and I like ancient literature. And there was a lot of writings from Lao Tzu and Confucius and the Shi Jing, the I Ching, books like this that are thousands of years old. And I was interested in literature from China. And from the Chinese literature, they sometimes would mention the instruments. And so there, it was a little bit of a long road, but from the literature, I found the instrument. From the instrument, I found a recording. And then and this is before Google, it's time at the library trying to find someone, then getting a phone book and calling a Chinese church, seeing, our Chinese charity, do you know anyone in your group that plays an instrument? And I'm a crazy guy just doing that. I actually found my first guzheng player at the library when I was checking out Chinese literature books. The woman who I checked the books out from was from Hong Kong. She played guzheng and she invited me to a rehearsal. So that's how I kind of got hooked in there. 2 years later, I'm conducting an American Chinese orchestra and knowing a lot about all the different instruments from the region. And then at the same time, I met my friends from Turkey. So I met Utku Dakran and Özgür Elgin and some other Şükrü, a few other Turkish musicians that played balama, played kaval, played doumbek, played cello, and they introduced me to some Turkish composers and Turkish traditional music, the odd meters, playing in 7/8, playing in 9/8, playing in 5, things that Americans don't do. And for me as a drummer, that's when Turkish music meant a lot to me because Turkish music showed me how much more rhythm is available to me. I was getting my college degree in jazz performance, drum set, studying drums all the time. And no one in any of my classes ever taught me about world rhythms from Turkey. Turkey is a very rich area in rhythm. And Turkey, not to be so pro Turkey here, but it's true as the trading post of the East, West, North, South, everywhere, you got influences from everywhere. And now in 2022, those influences are still there. You hear stuff from the Kurdish people, you hear stuff from Arab people, you hear stuff from the Turks, the Ottoman, the Greeks. It's all there. So learning rhythms from Turkey was wow, really opened me up. to know. And then at some point, I started Pangean Orchestra around 2009, 2010. And that was because I knew at this point, now after learning about China, Ireland, Turkey, South America, I knew, wow, there must be so much more out there. Let's try to get everyone coming in. We got a guy from Iran who played beautiful santur and could sing in Farsi and was deeply inspired by Rumi. So a lot of his music had to do with Rumi and the philosophies from Rumi, and that added an incredible element. And then there was a man named Ali Kamil from Iraq who was a refugee after the invasion in 2003 when America invaded Iraq. He came to America. He was playing at palaces. He was playing in Jordan, in Iraq, and everywhere. And now he's in Phoenix. He had a wealth of information. So these people start sharing, and a lot more learning takes place. And then eventually we got a man from Mongolia who showed us the Mongolian approach to playing the two-string, like we call it a horsehead violin. The real name is Morin Kur, and they add that throat singing to it. And some of that throat singing comes from Russia, well, what's now Russia, Tuva, and then some of it's from the east in Mongolia. So I got to learn, and then Japan. I mean, I started just learning. I feel like as a musician, as a human, as an earth person here, we have unlimited things that we can learn about. They're there. So learn about the thing that excites you. And sometimes that thing that excites you leads you on to something else. And then that leads you on to something else. So here on this planet, we are blessed with limitless things to learn about, to hear, to eat, to smell, to taste, to touch, to just feel with our heart. Yeah, there's so many things we can do. We just have to be open to it. And I'm not promising you're going to like everything. You won't. But you might as well try. Except Chikofte et Sis. I tried one and I got very sick. No, etle, the one with meat. Yeah,
I didn't hear it.
the Chikofte etle. The
It says no. It says çiğ köfte. Normally, it is with meat.
Yes, but that's the one I don't want. Etle, no. Et Sis is good for me.
Oh, it says without meat. So
I
it's
can eat that one.
kind of a meatball without meat. Yes.
Yes, that one I like.
And
Yeah,
the spicy and
yeah. So you're not gonna like everything. You're not gonna like everything. But you should might as well try it if it's there, especially when it's with good people. I was in Senegal for about 6 weeks and experienced a lot of good things there. I can't say I loved every single thing that I tasted there or tried there, but I would say the vast majority I did. And being in Senegal for so long, being around people that are different than me, that I don't speak French. I learned a little French. I learned a little Wolof, but mostly it was like heart to heart, human to human ways of communicating through music, communicating through smiles, through hand gestures, just being human. We found ways to get along. And I loved my time in Senegal.
I was there for a few days thanks to a Pang Congress. My poet, Senegalese friend Racine Senghor, he's also the president of Museum of Black Civilizations, one of the interviewees. Yes, I was very much touched, influenced by the Senegalese culture as much as I was open to. And when you compose, how is there do you have specific time of the day? Do you usually, or any time or how?
I like the question. The short answer is any time of day. The better answer, I think, when I'm more productive is when my life is more stable and I know where I am for a few weeks at a time, because I do travel. I like to get up early, around 6:37, and I like to write right away. Um, if that doesn't happen, which it hasn't been happening lately, then it's pretty much any time through the day. I will write lots of notes thanks to my phone here. I'm constantly writing notes down, making voice recordings to myself, and then collecting those. And I found, especially over the last 3, 4 months, because I've been traveling a lot, that I make use of as much note taking as I can, because you never know when the idea pops into your head and you don't want to lose it, you know. So as soon as that idea pops in your head, you write it down. And then sometimes you go back later and you think, oh, why did I think that was a good idea? And then sometimes you think, how could I forget that? That's so beautiful. Why don't I do this now? So um, it's a little of both. It's a great question. I wish I was more structured. I wish I could tell you at 4 o'clock every day I write for 3 hours, but that's not true.
Mm.
It, unless there's a deadline. If I have a deadline for a project, then I am a man on a mission and I will get that deadline. I will stop everything I'm doing. I'll decline an interview maybe, and I'll just get to work and do it.
Yes. I'm a procrastinator in a way, and uh, if there's a deadline, of course, I agree with you. Otherwise, I try to develop everything, and I take my time, write, rewrite, etc., and think so as much as possible. Um, Now, uh, maybe may I and we listeners have your father's name?
Oh, my father's name is Michael Thomas O'Donohoe.
Yes. And if it is, why not? How about dedicating this little interview to him? Uh,
Okay.
and and um, uh, the name of your orchestra, um,
Uh,
it's
the the Pangean Orchestra.
yes, it is when all the continents were together in one gigantic continent.
Yes, right. The original kind of supercontinent, and the message being that we're all just people on the planet before there were borders, before there were governments that said, this is my land and this is your land. But when we were just all figuring it out together, right? We
Yes.
were all just kind of figuring out, who are we? What is this? What is this land? Can I eat that plant over there? Back in those times, we were all just living on the same land. We were not separated by oceans. I mean, languages, of course, I'm sure we were, but uh, we were just on the same land, one land.
Mhm. Uh, and I hope humanity can survive and develop. We can develop ourselves into a world society like that. And that's why there is this Earth Civilization Network from various cultures, backgrounds, ages. We are on the same planet, yes, and let's do good things together. That's the
Yes, I have this idea sometimes, a fantasy of, if there was a sci-fi thing and there was say two of us from Earth and people from various other planets around the universe, if we were all put in a room, it doesn't matter if you were from, say, like Costa Rica and the other person was from Uzbekistan. Those two people would find each other and become buddies because we had the most in common, even though maybe back on Earth we wouldn't know each other, but
no,
we have the same number of limbs, we kind of look the same, and we would at least be like, oh, we're humans. So we would kind of stick together as humans. And we would be categorized that way too on a ship like that. So it's only when we're here on Earth where we can see all the differences. Oh, your skin is darker than mine. Oh, you believe in this God. Oh, you don't believe in this one. Oh, you speak this language. Oh, 100 years ago, your country did this to my country. Here on Earth, we're allowed to be mad at each other for things like that. But sometimes you don't have that luxury to be mad about things that really don't matter anymore. Not when our hearts are pure. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. And um, one last question for the moment. What would you recommend to young Earthmates? What would your advice to them be? Younger ones. You are young anyway.
Thank you. I would say um, that my best opinion would be to go out and find some experiences that are so outside your comfort zone and just try them. If you're adamantly on, say, one side of a political spectrum, maybe just go to the other side, just to a meeting or something, just to see the people. Put yourself in a situation where you think you have nothing in common with the other people, and just go. And you don't have to talk, or you don't have to, just observe. Or if you're especially for Americans watching, I think Americans really need to use their passport at least once. Stop all the excuses. Don't put it off till you're retired. Don't put it off till you're 65 or 70 to go travel, but travel somewhere now. If you identify like I was growing up as an Irish American, go to Ireland and you will discover how American you really are. You're not really Irish. I'm sorry to say it, but you're not. And you only need 6 days, 7 days in Ireland to realize you're American. And there's nothing wrong with being American. You're American. But it's a nice wake up call to go to your homeland, like your ancestral homeland, because in America, nobody except Native Americans are from America, and go somewhere and check it out. I would also strongly recommend something I really believe in is to go and volunteer in a poor community, and see what it's like. You will grow empathy and understanding for people when you hear their stories, or better yet, live in the area. Go to Senegal or go to somewhere and know what it's like. In Senegal, I had a nice apartment. I did not always have running water. I did not always have electricity. And as an American, do it for a short period of time, a week or two, and you will come back with a different take on your values. You might see some of your things that you thought were important before you left as important, but maybe not worth fighting and dying over. Maybe we should talk about human survival first, and then the luxury over a public policy regarding, etc., whatever, fill in the blank.
Thank you
But
so much, Colin.
yeah.
This may stop any moment. Please go on.
Okay. Oh no, so I would just say